Today, I'm joined by Sherelle Hogan, the executive director and founder of Pure Heart Foundation. And if anyone tuned into the Detroit Lions My Cause My Cleats game, Pure Heart Foundation, I feel like was everywhere. That's how we prepared for that week, was that you were one of our partners with Comerica Bank to help bring that initiative alive. So first off, Sherelle, what is Pure Heart Foundation?
Absolutely. First, I would just like to say thank you for having me be a part of your show. It's truly an honor. Pure Heart is a nonprofit, and we support children of incarcerated parents. So our main goal is to embrace them and provide critical wraparound services that affords them the equal access to have critical services, emotional support, stay connected to their parent that's incarcerated, ultimately to break that cycle, that perpetuating cycle of generational incarceration.
Why is the foundation so close to your heart and what you do?
Absolutely. Just because it's a very forgotten population. 2.7 million children across this country currently has a parent incarcerated, and no one really thinks about the emotional devastation, the day-to-day, toll it takes on a child from trying to navigate day-to-day life from having a parent incarcerated. But most importantly, I lived that, right? I was a child of two incarcerated parents as a child. My mom went to prison when I was 6 for the first time, and my father went when I was 7. And immediately after I watched them both be handcuffed, I was sitting in a room, in a courtroom with at least 30 to 40 people, and not one of the people that was in there was to specifically advocate for me. And because of that, my life changed immediately.
Did you have family members or did you have siblings who were there going through that process with you?
Absolutely. So I did not have any siblings at the time currently in the courtroom because I was raised as an only child.
Yeah.
I do have siblings on my father's side that I became aware of far after his incarceration. But far as family, I believe I had one family member there present in the courtroom with me during that time. But again, you're thinking about a 6 and 7-year-old girl at the time, no one could replace my parent. So it didn't matter who was really there. I just wanted them. And knowing that I couldn't leave with them was devastating.
Do you specifically still remember the moment you were in the courtroom as even a 6-year-old?
I do.
Do you try not to remember it, or is it just a core memory that you might be thankful for now at this point?
A part of me don't want to remember it just because it's very traumatic. It's emotional, it's triggering, right? Especially because I do this work every single day.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that I do have that memory because now as a leader, I can, use that as fuel to make sure that young people like me do not have to experience what I experienced.
When you no longer had either of your parents, where did you go? Who took care of you?
Everyone.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I lived with family, friends, people from church. The community, I feel like, raised me in a sense. Fortunately, I did not have to enter the foster care system. And I'm extremely grateful for that. But it was still challenging because I was trying to always fit in places. I never felt a sense of family or ownership within myself because I was, visiting friends for the holidays or spending the holidays with my aunts and uncles and friends. And although they loved me, it could not compare to the longing that I wanted from my mom or dad during those times.
And most of that family was in Detroit?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Is there a moment when you look back where even as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, you felt behind the 8 ball or that life was just going to be very difficult from here on out?
Absolutely. I can remember as a child not even wanting to live, if I can be honest, just because I felt so alone. I felt like I was in, a world where no one recognized me. No one understood the pain that I was experiencing. And I was silenced to just process that alone. When I was in school, I couldn't tell my teacher or my classmates that the reason why my parents didn't come to parent-teacher conference is because they're in prison, right? I couldn't go to the family member that was, in a sense, sacrificing more of their means to take care of me because my parents were incarcerated. So I was constantly in a battle alone. Yeah. And at one point, was life worth living as a child because all you're experiencing is pain, right? So
did that make you get a job sooner? Like were you working before the normal, 16, 18-year-olds?
No, I was not. So it's this huge misconception sometimes when a child loses their parent due to incarceration, we automatically think poverty, right? But to not get too deep into my parents' incarceration, we were well off.
Yeah.
Right? So financially, I never struggled. It was just emotionally and psychologically. And when you think about it, that's beyond finances, right? So I didn't have to get a job. I didn't feel the need to financially to try to provide for myself, but I did strive to take ownership of my own life. So I was the young kid in the library at 13, you know, researching how do I become my own legal guardian? How do I make sure that I can make decisions that's best for me to make sure that I had a fair chance to thrive, right? So.
Wow. Is there a high percentage of kids who then do need financial assistance with their parents?
Absolutely. So automatically a household decreases by 29% when a parent is, you know, separated from the household due to incarceration, right? So I'll give you an example of Pure Heart. We currently serve 230 young people this year. 85% of them are in low income households, right? So can you imagine them already having a financial insecurity on top of now their other parent, or in some cases, both of their parents are incarcerated. So how do I navigate financially just day to day for basic needs? You know, school uniforms, academic enrichment, right? Extracurricular activities is a challenge. But thankfully, Pure Heart is that bridge that fills that gap and provide those resources.
You talked about being a 13-year-old doing your own research, like in high school. One thing that I saw that was so impressive, you managed to graduate at the top of your class at your high school. What is it? So I don't say it correctly, your high school.
Absolutely. So I attended Detroit School of Performing Arts.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. To study journalism.
Yes.
Which is amazing. Why is that the path you wanted to go into?
Journalism. So honestly, I did not choose DSA.
Okay.
Let's start there. So I was very athletic, right? Okay. So I went to Edsel Ford and I was the, you know, star point guard at the time, my 9th grade year. And the family member that I was living with felt like I was putting too much emphasis on athletics.
Really?
So I was placed in a school with no sports, which was DSA. So again, I'm persevering and facing opposition and trying to turn, you know, a negative into a positive. And I found out that they had a journalism major. So I took up journalism because writing was very important to me as a young girl. I found my voice in writing and I wanted to continue that because essentially writing saved my life.
Yeah. Do you ever think back about the basketball career that could have been?
All the time. So it's funny because one of the things that I do when I'm extremely stressed is I'll go in a gym and just shoot around, and it just allows me to, you know, release pressure, anger, anything that I'm experiencing, but it gives me a space to go back because basketball was such a huge part of my life as a child, a positive part.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you went on to the University of Michigan where you got your BA in child psychology, which is not journalism. So how did you start going over into this path of psychology?
Absolutely. So during high school, I managed to meet my first mentor. Her name is Doria Barnes. Never forget this woman. She was this positive light. And, you know, she told me, at that time, little girl, you know, you've experienced so much, but I promise if you stick with it, if you stay dedicated and motivated, so much is going to come from your experience. And I didn't understand what she meant then because when you experience so much bad, it's difficult to see the good, right? So after months of her basically making me see what she saw in myself, I had an opportunity to go to D.C. My freshman year in college. And I worked for the Children's Defense Fund.
Wow.
And I worked with middle schoolers at a middle school for the summer through their summer camp called Freedom School. And through that, I fell in love with children. And it really changed the trajectory of the career path that I thought, right? I always wanted to be a professional writer, which I wrote a book. So essentially it still happened, right?
Right.
But it was a huge, huge purpose, you know, beyond me writing. And that's when everything about my life changed to making sure that children's lives could be saved.
I love that you mentioned your book. It's called what? The Prisoner's Kid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get very real in that about your story?
Yeah, it's an open book.
Yeah.
Danny, it just walks you through top to bottom of everything that I experienced as a child.
Really?
If I could sum it up, it's a love letter to my parents. Oh. And it's the first time that I really articulate how their incarceration made me feel.
And you told me before this started, you're best friends with your mom.
Yes.
Unfortunately, your dad passed away when you were little, but what is the relationship, the dynamic like with your mom?
So it was challenging at first, right? Because so much of my childhood and the pivotal moments as me, you know, growing as a young girl and becoming a young adult, she was incarcerated. And when she came home, we had to have very hard conversations to really unpack some of the experiences that I had to endure while she was away and even when she was home.
Yep.
And when I became an adult, I had a voice not as just her daughter, but as a woman. And it wasn't easy. We had to do work. We had to go to therapy. But from that and our willingness to, you know, want and have the relationship that we desired, it's great. She's like my best friend. We talk every single day. She supports Pure Heart. She pushes me to keep going with Pure Heart just because she understands how important this work is because we lived it.
You told me your dad passed away 2 months after he was released.
Yes, when I was 10 years old. So it was just like, you know, blow after blow. When is it going to stop, right?
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for my journey.
Do you feel sad that you couldn't have that same experience with your dad after he got out and had those conversations?
It's so many instances where I, you know, think, wow, if my dad was here, I'd talk to him about this. Or, you know, if my dad was here, I probably wouldn't have got that heartbroken that time because he probably would have been able to filter that, right? But it's so many moments as women and as little girls. We need a dad, you know, we need men, positive men who genuinely loves us, protect us, and cover us from things that we can't see, you know. So I always wish that he was here, but I know that he's with me.
When we talk about Pure Heart, we talk about the aid that you're giving kids to develop relationships with their parents who are in prison. But do you do anything to help parents who have been incarcerated?
Absolutely. So we just started an initiative called our Family Reunification, right? So at first, initially, it was solely to make sure that the kiddos stay connected to their parent that's incarcerated. And once parents began to come home and caregivers became more involved in Pure Heart, we understood that attacking this challenge from a family perspective and not just a child perspective would truly give us the success that we want to see in this generational cycle ending. So now for parents coming home, we offer family reunification therapy. We have restorative practices circles to make sure that during that transition, they have emotional support to communicate with their child. We have financial assistance that we can do. And then we also have a caregiver relief fund for the parent that's not incarcerated to make sure that we can eliminate financial barriers that they may, you know, face while they're the sole parent financially and emotionally for the child.
I know one big emphasis, something you guys emphasized was getting transportation for kids to visit their parents in prison.
Yes.
Is that something you didn't experience when your parents were incarcerated?
Yes. So I think 6 through 14, I never physically visited my parent.
You couldn't get there?
No.
Wow.
No.
Were they far away?
My mother was out of state.
Okay.
My dad, he did more, you know, county in and out 1 to 2 years. My mom is the one who actually served federal prison time. And she was in Virginia. Wow. And
you didn't see her from 6 to 14 years old?
No.
Wow. Phone calls, FaceTime?
Phone calls, they didn't happen as often, but we did communicate. At that time, it wasn't a thing of FaceTime or video visits during that time, but I really wanted to see her, but it just wasn't a priority of the people that I was with to get me to her.
Wow. Did they at some point, not trying to make you not love your mom anymore, but lack of support? Could you feel that?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I lived it. Yeah. You know, I experienced it. And it's not that I disliked my mother for it. You know, especially as I became older and an adult woman, I understood her story. Yeah. You know, and we talked yesterday, and something that she's never told me, but she told me today. So I'm still processing it. Yeah. So we can process it together. But she said, you know, I never wanted kids. And when I had you because your dad really wanted you. Yeah. And the reality is, she said, I had to learn to love you. Okay. Because I didn't want you. Right. And you hear that, and it's like, what type of person would say that? a very honest person, right? A person that knows exactly what they want and what they don't want.
Yeah.
And now that they're presented with something that they didn't want, how do you expect them to respond?
Yeah.
You know, at 6 and 7, I wouldn't have understood that.
No.
But as an adult, I can, you know, wholeheartedly understand that. Am I making excuses for some of the choices? Absolutely not. Because I don't think I would have made the choices that she made. But I never was in her position, right? So to answer your question, I love her. I honor her, you know, but I am very aware that her decisions is some of the reason why I experienced what I experienced.
Yeah. And why Pure Heart Foundation exists.
Exactly.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
This is not your first time in the Detroit Lions facility, you told me. So what is the work you've been doing with the Detroit Lions? What does that partnership look like?
Absolutely. So in 2019, I was notified by a former staff member of the Detroit Lions that we were selected to be a part of the Inspire Change initiative. And from there, that relationship started and has been going on for about 3 to 4 years now. They financially support our mental health component. And because of that, scholars have received group therapy, individual therapy, holistic after-school programs. And we've had an outcome of a 98% behavioral and emotional improvement rate since that. So it's been an incredible journey with the Lions. And I'm sure you know that I was selected to be the first Inspire Change maker.
Yes.
So that's incredible too.
What did that mean for Pure Heart Foundation and for you to be nominated for that?
When I found out I was nominated, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Right? Just because when you start something and you're so passionate about something, never do you think that the magnitude in which it reaches people to understand your work resonates to the point where they want to nominate you for an award that never even existed, right?
Yeah.
So it was a tremendous honor for me as a leader, and it was huge for Pure Heart because every win I take as an individual to the scholars, I'm seen as both of her parents were incarcerated. So if Miss Sherelle can do that, that can be me, you know? So I take pride in accomplishing things like that because not only is it for me, but it's for the other millions of children who may feel hopeless right now, lonely right now, and don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it was incredible.
What were some of the perks that came with that?
Yeah, so unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that a $10,000 check would come with that.
Amazing.
Right? I received, I'm wearing it now, some Inspire
Love.
Change gear, right? But also, ultimately, just being able to say that, right? I am the first ever Inspire Change maker presented by the Detroit Lions, and it's an honor.
Amazing. What kind of partnership collaboration did you have with the My Cause My Cleats initiative this year?
Yes.
I have a pair of shoes that have Pure Heart Foundation on it, and they're awesome.
So Comerica Bank selected Pure Heart to be the recipient of the My Cause My Cleat campaign last year, and at first I didn't know what exactly that entailed, and then the Detroit Lions let me know that they would match any donations that we received up to $100,000.
Yeah. And you guys hit that.
Yes, we exceeded the goal. We actually raised close to $104,000 in 19 days. So it was incredible.
Oh my gosh. Is that the most you probably raised in that amount of time?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? When they presented the matching period, I said, "Are you sure that's the only time we get?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "It's 19 days."
Yeah, that's it. That's all you needed.
19 at the fourth quarter, and I fundraise, you know, as my career now for Pure Heart. So I'm like, it's fourth quarter. Everyone books are closed until next year. How am I going to raise $100,000 in 19 days? So I went back to them again. I said, "You sure you don't want to extend it?" And they said, "You're fine.
Yeah,
You can do it." Right? And they was right. Because we exceeded the goal, surprisingly.
the NFL is it's a large entity.
Yes.
It gets things going.
Absolutely.
Amazing. What is your favorite part about being disconnected to the hometown team in the Detroit Lions?
It really speaks to my goal and vision for Pure Heart, and that's to give children of incarcerated parents a place where they can reimagine their lives and community, knowing that they're supported and seen, right? So why not be able to say the Detroit Lions organization, right? In their hometown supports them, sees them, spend times with them, right?
Yeah.
And cultivate the visions that they have inside of them as young people. So it means the world to know that the Detroit Lions support Pure Heart. You know, where else do we go from there?
Right? It's amazing what you've been able to do. What is possibly next for Pure Heart Foundation? How do you want to keep growing?
Absolutely. So the goal is to be a nationally replicated model, just because I understand that children of incarcerated parents exist everywhere.
Yeah.
But the short-term goal is to expand throughout the state of Michigan, which we've began that process. We're actually expanding to Grand Rapids in the middle of this year. So I'm extremely proud and happy for that.
So that would be the first thought that comes to my mind when you say national or statewide brand is like a Boys and Girls Club.
Absolutely.
That model that is national.
Yep. It's easily to be replicated, right?
Yes.
I just want to drop a Pure Heart Scholar Center around the world, just so that, you know, young people experiencing the same equal life challenge can go through that journey together and not alone.
That is beautiful. How do people support Pure Heart Foundation?
Absolutely.
Yes. It's the most important question.
Right?
Yes.
People can support by visiting our website, which is pureheartfoundation.org. We are on all social media platforms as Pure Heart Cares. And I would tell anyone, right, that's not, I guess, the most knowledgeable about children of incarcerated parents to just be kind.
Yeah.
You know, be kind to young people because you never know what they're experiencing, right? Currently, right now, 4 in 10 young people in Detroit have a parent incarcerated.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So just understanding that we don't look like what we've been through.
No.
And it's important to be kind, and just being kind can save someone's life.
One last thing to put you on the spot. What is your favorite story based on a child that you've helped with incarcerated parents?
Oh,
you can
my
share
goodness.
as much as you can.
Oh my goodness.
One that might stick out to you as a core memory.
I think I would have to talk about our first boy scholar.
Okay.
I met him when he was 12 years old. And at the time, his father was incarcerated. And a year after him being enrolled in the program, his mom went to prison as well. So now both of his parents are incarcerated. And we had transparent conversations, you know, about how just he didn't want to live and how life was just so hopeless for him, right? Fast forward, he graduated high school, full-time entrepreneur.
Wow.
He's in a 4-year college university. He's never been to juvenile. He didn't perpetuate the cycle of incarceration. Both of his parents are home. He's a mentor now at Pure Heart. And it just, right? I'm not going to be emotional, but it's why I do the work that I do.
How old is he now?
He's 19.
Oh my gosh. That's
He's
amazing.
19 years old. So it's so many stories that I can, you know, talk about, but his is just so powerful because I remember meeting him and he was so guarded. And, you know, he had this sense of, I'm not going to say embarrassment, but he was afraid to really tell his story.
Yep.
And now he tells it, you know, with so much confidence because he understands that just because he was a child of an incarcerated parent does not mean he has to be a parent that'll be incarcerated. Doesn't mean that he has to, you know, be entangled in that criminal justice system. So although he was a statistic, he did not become one.
I love that. That's all I've got for you. Is there anything else you would like to add that we might not have touched on?
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Seriously, for making time for us. It's a big week for us, and I know you're always busy with what's on your plate, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you.